Let's talk about the male loneliness epidemic without making it a woman's problem. Welcome back to Stay at Home Feminist. Your soft girl era starts here along with the fall of the patriarchy. I'm your host, Binx, your favorite feminist with a TikTok addiction. And today we're talking about a topic that I can't seem to escape when I go online. The male loneliness epidemic. I specifically want to talk about why it's suddenly this big crisis and why, per usual, women are expected to fix it or do something about it, which, is pretty par for the course with the patriarchy, considering women are expected to fix everything all the time, always. So let's continue to unlearn the patriarchy one hot take at a time, while men continue to wonder why they have no friends. But first, we are a new podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Let us know how you're feeling about this show. And yeah, let's dive in. I said let's dive in, but before we dive in, so last time we were talking, I had like a Botox situation. So I think I might have taken my makeover a little too far and I fucked around and I got Invisalign. It was partly like cosmetic because I wanted straighter teeth. I had braces when I was younger, but only on my top and not on my bottom. And I moved to a new city, so I found a new dentist and I've been having jaw pain for like years. I've gotten mastered of Botox about it. Like I have TMJ and they were like, yeah, it's because your teeth are out of alignment. If you get Invisalign, it will fix all your problems. And I went in 2 days ago and they're like fitting me for my Invisalign, which I literally thought they were just gonna like hand me a retainer and I was gonna go. But no, if you have Invisalign, and if you don't, they put like these little globs on your teeth and the Invisalign uses it, they're called tracks, and uses it to like move your teeth. So I have like these little dots on my teeth now and they kind of like give me a little bit of a lisp. I took my Invisalign out obviously to film this because like I would have like a total lisp, but yeah, so that is my journey. That is my journey. Botch Botox and Invisalign. So get into it. If you have any Invisalign questions, ask me because I like do not read the fine print and I just like dove in and did it. And then yesterday I was on TikTok and an astrologist was like, don't do anything to update like the way you look during Venus being in retrograde starting 2 days ago. And I was like, well, fuck. So here we are. All right. I feel like I can't go online without seeing people talking about the male loneliness epidemic. I feel like this really jumped into our headlines when Trump was reelected into office because many people, myself included, were like, what the actual fuck? How did this happen? Like, I thought we learned, but guess not. And I think that started talking about like how he targeted a lot of young men in the crypto space and the rise of the incels, the fucking dude that's all like your body, my choice, like all of that, that moment kind of snowballed into everyone being like, what is the male loneliness epidemic? And now people are talking about it. That's my version of events, at least. That's how it happened in my world. But I feel like the subtext is often like, here's the problem. What can women do to make it better? Meanwhile, women are out here like building friendships, prioritizing self-care, like thriving in their group chats, not just texting their friends like sup. Women do a really good job of maintaining relationships. Men are not always taught that same skill. I've heard stats that like when there's a heterosexual relationship, when the woman dies first in like a marriage, the man normally dies shortly after because like they don't have like the same relationships to lean on. But when the husband dies first, the woman usually lives for like another 20 years because she has like other relationships to lean on and places to go outside of her marriage, where men aren't always good at facilitating that. We talk about this in other episodes where some of the emotional labor that women take on in heterosexual relationships is the like, remind your husband to send your mom flowers for her birthday, to like do this social thing and like keeping these familial and friendship relationships alive. Like that burden often falls onto the woman. So there's that. The other side of the coin is that, marriage used to be a contract. Like women used to have to marry men to be able to like have a roof over their heads and income because women couldn't work. And now a woman doesn't need a man for anything. She doesn't even need a man to have babies. Like she could do that all on her own. And these studies are coming out that women who are single and childless live longer, are healthier, are happier, all these things. Other than to add value and love and companionship in their life, women don't need men. It's a want, it's not a need. need. So if men aren't adjusting to the time period and stepping up to the plate and being an addition to a woman's life, she's like, I'm better off without you. If you're just gonna like drain me socially, not be fun, not contribute to my life, and now I have to do your laundry. Like, you know what I mean? So just some things to noodle on while we dive in. Today, I also really want to look into why are men lonely? If you've listened to this podcast before, you probably can guess where I'm going with this. And yeah, it is the patriarchy. As I say time and time again, the patriarchy is horrible to men. It's not just women that the patriarchy is bad to. Men are not thriving under the patriarchy. They are having a hard time and they are not processing their feelings about it. So men, go to therapy, please. Run, don't walk. And women, you do not need to be their emotional support human. Like, you do not need to. If they're having a hard time, that's on them. Let's all dismantle our inner misogyny, men included, and we wouldn't even need to have this conversation, basically. The male loneliness epidemic, I feel like, is such an interesting one because it's like this crisis that's happening. And also, like, men aren't doing anything to make it better. Like, I hear people talking about it, but I don't see men like working together to find community. I just see men further getting easily sucked into the alt-right pipeline or the incel pipeline. And it's like kind of a joke online now where it's like a man will go online for financial advice and 2 videos later, he's in the alt-right pipeline like Elon Musking everybody. So, you know, I personally prefer for there not to be a male loneliness epidemic because, you know, we're all here on this planet together and this suffering is impacting all of us by the ways that they are easily talked into voting against their own interests and their loved ones' interests, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. And also, here we are again with men upholding the patriarchy while the patriarchy is just making their lives harder, making them lonelier. You know, like men aren't forming book clubs or having wine nights or like group chat therapy sessions like so many women I know do. I think for all of us, men and women alike, the pandemic really sort of got us used to being alone or like homebody vibes, except for those who are like super extroverted. Like the pandemic like didn't really slow them down. But for a lot of us, it just sort of normalized us like not interacting with as many humans, working from home, getting your groceries delivered, like all of these things. We were sort of like set to go that way anyways with the rise of technology. And then the pandemic like accelerated that like 20 years, but like in a month. I hardly ever go to the grocery store now. Like 3 out of 4 times I'm gonna order my groceries online. And every once in a while I'll go myself. So, you know, that's like half the humans I would see a week I'm not seeing anymore. And so I think it sort of normalized that for everybody, not just men. And I see a lot of chatter online about like there not being third spaces anymore. Basically, like there aren't places outside your home or work that people just hang. I think this is especially true when you take away like places or alcohol focused. It's hard if you like don't want to go out for drinks to have like casual places to just hang. I think the days of just going to coffee shops, like in Friends, they're always at the coffee shop. Like that's not a thing now where people just like go and hang at the same coffee shop every day. That's like not a thing that people do. It's like we're hanging out at home. There's this erasure of third spaces. So these things are happening like on a scale that just affect everybody. And then I think when you look at the way that the patriarchy asks men to be independent, to swallow their feelings, to be macho and not be vulnerable and all of these things at the same time as like the erasure of third spaces and the way the pandemic prompted us to be more sort of isolated or on our own. It's like, yeah, no wonder there's a male loneliness epidemic. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. What did we think was going to happen here? But I would be curious if there are any men listening to this podcast. Like, do you feel like women build friendships a lot easier than men? Like, I kind of feel like men sometimes need that instruction manual to like build these friendships and these bonds. And again, even with their own family, that comes back to what I was saying before about women in heterosexual relationships needing to be the one to remind the man to get their friend this birthday present, get their mom flowers, get the this, that, get the da, you know, like they're the ones who sort of like have to give this instruction manual to a man to cultivate these relationships in his life, even relationships that existed before his wife entered the chat. So it's like, yeah, men who don't have that are just out there on their own, like isolated, like that tracks. So the stats are in and it's giving grim. Studies show that men have fewer close friends than ever before. So this like epidemic is for real. It is something that is actually happening. Meanwhile, like my phone is full of group chats that have like 87 unread messages. And it seems that single men are struggling the most. Turns out when your entire emotional support system was your girlfriend and she finally gets tired of being your unpaid therapist, you're kind of SOL. And apparently the number of men who say they have 0 close friends has tripled over the last 30 years. I mean, that's sad. That's sad. I don't want anyone to be like lonely and on their own. And again, we see the rise of the incels. We see the ways that mass unalivings at schools and churches and stuff due to gun violence. Like, we see who's the perpetrator of those crimes. It's men. Like, men are not okay. And they think it's really, really like, there's all these like warning signs, not even warning signs, like cries for help that men are having right now. And as a woman in this, like, yeah, I'll do what I can with the men in my life to like support them. But I don't have that many men in my life because I honestly don't like being around men because men don't have my best interests and they make me uncomfortable, especially in today's world when men are like voting for politicians that are trying to take away my bodily autonomy and my human rights. I don't feel safe around them and I don't want to be around them. And maybe that's not the best way to be. Maybe I should be, working extra hard to include them and advocate to them, I guess, and like get them on our side. But like I was doing that like 8, 7, 6 years ago and I'm effing tired of it and I don't want to do that anymore. So it's like I have like 3 men in my life, my dad, my brother, and my husband. And although they're men in my life, I'm like, they're my friend's husband or my friend's boyfriend or my friend's this. Like, they're not really my friends. And even if I get along with them, great. Like, I don't really care about you. That's not true for all of them. Like, some of them I really, really love. And some of my friends have married really, really sweet men that I really appreciate their like insight in their company. And also, for the most part, I'm sort of like over this notion of like women having to fix things that men are breaking. And I think that's what's so tricky about this conversation for me is I like want to shine a light on it because I do see the ways in which like this epidemic is negatively impacting me because of the way that it is inspiring men. Like, this loneliness breeds this sort of darkness that welcomes hate and mistrust and manipulation that has these men voting and acting in ways that are harmful for myself and other people that I love and just like humanity as a whole. So I like wish there was more I could do. And also I'm like, man, figure it out. Figure it out. Like, ask a friend for help, like call a friend, phone a friend. And I wish I could explain why it was so hard for them. It's like the simplest explanation is the right explanation here. Men are lonely because the patriarchy tells them they can't be vulnerable. And when you're not able to be vulnerable, you can't form really, really close relationships. You can't form a community that you reach out to and you work to depend on them when times are tough, like that's what vulnerability is all about, is having like support systems that you lean on when you're not okay. And I feel like the patriarchy asks men not to do that, to figure it out themselves and to go within. And so every time there's an opportunity for vulnerability, they isolate themselves, and that like just sets off some sort of shame cycle as well, because then they have this shame about like feeling these feelings and not being tougher and all this stuff. So it's like moves them further and further away from vulnerability and more into shame. So it's just like this hamster wheel of internalized misogyny, shame, and avoiding vulnerability that men go through. And it's like, yeah, if that is your MO, if that is your day-to-day, like obviously you're not going to be able to form meaningful relationships with people. And then they meet a partner, the heterosexual men meet their female partner, and she becomes like finally someone that they can unload all this vulnerability. So it's like super soak sprayed all at her, and she has to absorb it all like a sponge. And like, that's not great either. And, I think some people are introverts and they need less friends, and that's not who I'm talking about. And community means different things for different people. Like, if you just have 2 close friends you can lean on, that can be plenty for some people. Some people like to have 20 acquaintances that they can call, like each one for a different thing they need. Like, whatever you want to do, that's like whatever's your jam, like do it. I've been the type of person who loved having 20 acquaintances I could lean on. And I've also been the person who only wants like 1 or 2 close friends they can call and keeps my circle small. I've done both and each worked for me at different times. Like, whatever you want to do it. But to get that community and that connection, you need to be able to be vulnerable to some degree. Even if like it is just being like going up to someone at a workout class and like saying hi, like someone that looks cool, like you want to be friends with, being like, hey, I'm new to the city. Like, do you want to get a coffee? Like, that is so vulnerable. I've done that before. And it was like, I like almost had an anxiety attack because it's just like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like, are you going to reject me? Like, are you going to say no? Are you going to think I'm a loser for like coming up to you? And so it is like beyond like the vulnerability of being able struggle to like let people know you're not okay. There is also a vulnerability in the inception of being friends. It's that being like, hey, I'm interested in being your friend. And it is hard to make friends as adults, especially when you're out of like college and stuff. It is hard to find hobbies that aren't like drinking related. So this is something I think like a lot of us deal with, but it's especially true for men who struggle to be vulnerable. So I guess if you take one thing away from this, if you're a woman listening, find ways to get the men in your life to be vulnerable within themselves and within friend groups. Not that this is your burden or your responsibility, but also men, like really, really like, I just wish I could shake you and be like, it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel your feelings. It's okay to want friends. Like that's normal. Humans were built for connection. So stop siloing yourself into oblivion. I mean, I think it says so much about gender roles that women seem to thrive in friendships, even in like catty friendships, like the friendships in White Lotus, where those three women are like always talking shit about each other. Like I've been in those friendships, and even if they're like catty and a little bit toxic, like they are still supportive and they are still there for me. Like women know how to be there for each other. Whereas men, it's almost as if they're acting like talking about their feelings is like confessing a crime. It's like almost like talking about your feelings is like illegal or something, and they are like so bottled up. And I think, you know, I talk a lot about here the ways that the pressures of the patriarchy sort of push women into dark places, push us into having autoimmune conditions or into disordered eating or like all of the above. And that is very true. But I think today's episode is a little bit more about like the ways that the patriarchy is pushing men into these places of darkness. And the only way to expel darkness is with light. And men are in these dark, damp, moldy corners of the internet and they're lonesome in their dark, damp, moldy basements. And it's like, no wonder that darkness is breeding darkness. Like we need to put some light in there. We need to shine some light on that and expel this darkness a little bit. It's hard for me to know if men like even want deeper connections though. Like as I'm talking about this, I'm like, I wonder how a man would react, especially like that side of the internet man would react to hearing me say this. I feel like he would be like, oh my gosh, shut up, I'm fine. And that makes me wonder, like, do men want deeper connections, or are they just panicking because their girlfriends stop fixing their problems? Like, I can't tell you. I'm not a man. I don't understand. And it's hard for me to blame men, although not that hard, because I do feel like it's very obvious to me the ways that society like normalizes this. Like if a man is having like a hard time or is lonely, like you're not going to hear his parents or his peers be like, go build a support system of men. They're going to be like, go find a girlfriend. Like that is sort of like the norm of where to push men. So it's like, no wonder they don't know how to build friends, or like not even don't know how to build friend groups, but like don't know that that is something they need or are missing. Like I think that's the thing here, is that men are struggling with this and it's such a big blind spot for them. They don't even realize this is something that they're struggling with until it's too late, until they're like doing something violent because they're so lonely, or like on the side of the internet that promotes violence because they're so lonely, and like finding community in all the wrong places. So why do men struggle to make friends? It's the patriarchy, babe. It's the patriarchy. Men aren't taught how to connect. They're only taught how not to be weak. The man up culture discourages vulnerability. So instead of bonding over feelings or even shared interests, men are bonding like solely over what is okay in the patriarchy, like sports, beer, and like grunting at each other. If you are really passionate about sports, that's so great that you can find other men that are passionate about sports and do like sports things together. Sure, that's like a hobby, that's interest. But like if your relationships are only around male-centered things, like sports and beer, like where else can you have friendships, you know? That's probably why men struggle to create these relationships, because if it's not around the Super Bowl that happens once a year, they're not really meeting up with their friends about stuff. I think the like lone wolf mentality also like plays a part here, where men are like, I don't need anybody, I'm okay, like all on my own. And like somehow it's like that's like a good thing for them, or they see it as a good thing for them, when really I feel like it's just the patriarchy like keeping men emotionally stunted. As I mentioned, straight men almost exclusively rely on their romantic partners for emotional support. And when the relationship ends, it like yanks their entire support system. And then they're also, you know, hurt and whatever. And instead of like fostering community or finding people to be vulnerable with, they like double down on this toxic masculinity and just like sleep with as many girls as they can, or like isolate even more, or like just focus on their work thing. And so I think, you know, you see the coping mechanisms of people who don't know how to healthfully cope with hard feelings. Meanwhile, for like women, I feel like women often have like multiple groups of friends. Like they have their like super therapy friends that they call when like shit's going wrong. They have their brunch friends that they go and like get drinks with, get brunch with, whatever, like is out on the town friends. They have their talk shit about the patriarchy and like, let's go to a protest together friends, you know? And like sometimes these friendships overlap and they are like all the same person or all the same group. But like other times it's like you have different friends for different things and that's okay. And I feel like that's like a lot more normalized with women and girls than it is with men. So like most things, there is this notion that women are the answer to fixing men's isolation issues. Women can't fix male loneliness. We can be like Band-Aid solutions for it, but the only people who can really fix the male loneliness epidemic are men themselves. Because it needs to be men who are the ones who do something about it, both like within themselves, in their personal life, and with other men. You know, I think that's one of the most interesting things about like culture and society and emotions is oftentimes when you see people lead by example, they show you how to do stuff. So if you've never seen a man be vulnerable and you're a man, like you might not know how to do it. But if you have a friend that comes and is vulnerable to you, it might inspire you to be vulnerable, like that kind of thing. So like men need to unlearn their inner misogyny themselves, learn how to feel their feelings, go to therapy, please, please, please. And like start with from within and then like build their own networks of community and safeness and lead by example with other men in their life who don't know how to do this or who are scared to do this. Like women aren't the answer here. So let's stop acting like women are the ones who are supposed to clean up men's messes. Women already handle like 99% of emotional labor in relationships, in families, and in workplaces. And now we're supposed to fix the male loneliness epidemic? Pass, girl, pass. No thanks. Yeah, I often see the media and the internet sort of maybe not frame this as like a woman's issue to fix, but like there always seems to be undertones of like men are lonely. What can we do about it? And the we shouldn't include women. Like this is a men's problem that men need to fix together. And I implore you to. And of course, like women can be supportive because this does affect us too, but this isn't like our problem to fix. I think it's just really easy for society or the media to grab onto this idea that like men just need girlfriends or wives or like a mom figure to take care of them when, you know, men should be able to take care of themselves emotionally. Like it's 2025. Let's get to a place where men can take care of themselves mentally and emotionally without needing like female figure babysitters in their lives or without normalizing girlfriends being men's unpaid therapists because nobody has time for that. And I think that is actually like part of the proponent of this male loneliness epidemic is that, as I said in the beginning of this episode, because women don't need men like they used to historically, women are like, yeah, I don't want to be your unpaid therapist. Like, I'm going to go focus on myself. Like, yeah, I don't want to be with someone who is emotionally stunted and doesn't want to like grow emotionally and mentally with me as a partner, like bye, you know? And I think men are having a hard time catching up to that. And also a lot of men who are toxic or very, very misogynistic don't want women or partners who challenge them. So they wouldn't even appreciate a partner who was trying to like explore different emotional levers with them. They just want someone who's going to listen to them like bitch and whine and vent about stuff. And so there's like this disconnect with the way that women are growing and able to invest in themselves and focus on themselves and explore their inner worlds, which helps expand their outer worlds. And the way that a lot of men aren't doing the same thing. It's like no wonder women are out here thriving and like stepping into their power, and men are over there living in the shadows, like dwelling in their basements, you know, being basement dwellers, like trolls under a bridge. So if this somehow ends on the male side of the internet, men, what can you do if you are lonely? Because I feel for you. I've been lonely too. And I'm a pacifist. I want peace, love, light. I want everyone to be happy. I want to banish sadness from the world. And I know that loneliness and hate breeds more loneliness and hate. So I would like to shine some light to expel that darkness. So men, how can you fix your own loneliness? And these are going to be solutions that don't involve women doing all the work. So it's up to you, men. Step 1, talk to each other. Revolutionary, I know. Step 2, find a hobby that doesn't involve DMing women at 2 a.m. or being online or like gender normal things for men, like sports and stuff. Like go do a pottery class, or you know what, like even like a new sport, let's say like kickboxing or boxing or something, Muay Thai or whatever. Like I guess it can be a sport because physical health is involved with that. And so, yeah, but I mean, like by not being sports, I meant like going to watch sports games. But I guess if it's a hobby, I'll approve that one. So find a hobby, basically, is number 2. Go to therapy. I know I say it so much on this podcast. Go to therapy, men. Please, please go to therapy. Just do it. And in therapy, unpack why vulnerability is so hard for you. And step 4 will come easy if you do all these other steps. Stop expecting women to do all of the emotional heavy lifting. What are some ways men can actively practice emotional vulnerability? I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Men, my tip for you is journal. If you don't know where to start with being vulnerable, I always say it starts with yourself. Journal, journal, journal. I like to do morning pages. I did the artist way. And so I'm a morning pages girl through and through. I don't do them all the time, but like morning pages is basically like you write 3 pages nonstop and you like try not to lift up your pen. You just like write and just like get all the gunk out of you. So if you don't know where to be vulnerable, start with yourself. Like just write down your thoughts and just like become the observer of your own thoughts. That's not even very vulnerable. It's just like mindfulness and awareness is like the first step to vulnerability though, I think. And once you become aware of your thoughts and you've processed them, like you can start sharing them with people and it doesn't feel as scary because you feel like you know what's going on. At least that's how it is for me. And now for my ladies, how do we set boundaries so we are not the default emotional labor providers for men? I think this is different for everyone depending on like if you're single, if you're not single, what kind of relationships you have with men. And yeah, it will look different for everybody. I have a friend who, when she is with her dad and brother and they're all in the same household, she's like washing their laundry and stuff for them. And I'm like, what? Like, that's not even emotional labor. That's just like household labor. That's also unpaid labor. And I'm like, girl, I could never. But she doesn't have a problem with it. She's just like totally happy to help. So like, if I'm not going to yuck your yum. So again, I think it really depends on each person and figuring out like your own personal boundaries and what's okay with you. The easiest way to set boundaries essentially are to figure out what your boundaries are and set them and stick to them. I know that sounds easier said than done, but it is about like self-exploration and figuring out what you can appreciate and what you can't and what boundaries you can budge on. I saw something online that was like the price to pay for community is being annoyed. Like it's like that. Like you go out into public to enjoy stuff and then like the public is there and you're like, ugh, you know? And I think we get more isolated and more isolated and more isolated because it can be more convenient not to deal with like the inconvenience of being around people, you know, like going to a concert, you're going to have to wait in line. You're going to have to be around people. You're going to have like loud people near you. People might smell weird, whatever. Like going on a trip, you're going to have to go to the airport. You're going to wait in line. There's going to be loud people, like, you know, like all these same things where when you're in public, you don't have control over everything and you have this annoyance of other people, but that's also like the beauty of it. And so I think in today's world, while we talk about boundaries, I am really like mindful of that other side of the coin where it's like, yes, it's important to have your boundaries and it's important to do things that make you feel safe and like you can thrive. And also like being annoyed is kind of the price you pay of having community. So there's that. I don't know if that's relevant. It was just top of mind because I just saw a TikTok about it the other day and I was like, oh my God, I love that. I'm going to use that. And here I am using it. At the same time, setting boundaries isn't mean, it's necessary. And you're not a bad person for refusing to be an emotional support system for a grown man who refuses to call his own friends or to even make friends. So like 2 things can be true. You are not responsible for solving male loneliness. You are only responsible for your own peace. On that note, let's dive in to our last segment of today's show, Feminist Affirmations, because we are not mothering grown men. Honey. Okay, here are some affirmations for the girls and the gays who are done being emotional crutches. If this is your first time listening, I like to tell people to feel free to pause or say them out loud or do whatever you do to feel like you can really speak or think this affirmation into existence. So yeah, let's get started. It is not my job to fix emotionally unavailable people. It is not my job to fix emotionally unavailable people. It is not my job to fix emotionally unavailable people. I am allowed to set boundaries without guilt. I am allowed to set boundaries without guilt. I am allowed to set boundaries without guilt. I am thriving because I surround myself with people who value me, not just people who need me. I am thriving because I surround myself with people who value me, not just people who need me. I am thriving because I surround myself with people who value me, not just people who need me. Okay, that is it for our episode on the male loneliness epidemic. So much more to say, but it is really quite simple. The patriarchy is bad for men, and men are lonely because of it. There, problem solved. I fixed it. I fixed the whole epidemic. You're welcome. Although this is a real issue, women are not the solution. Men, figure it out, please. Thanks. Men, please start supporting each other instead of dumping it all on women or becoming incels who hate women and misogynists. So let's not do that, please. Thanks. And a quick reminder to all of us who wish we could do more, but need to set boundaries. You are not responsible for fixing a system that men refuse to change. So men, I'm sorry you are lonely, but you dug this hole. You got to find your own way out of it. If you know me, you know I think it's really, really important to talk about these issues and shine a light on it, but that doesn't always mean that it has to become like your cross to bear. And this isn't my cross to bear. I think it is really important, again, to discuss it and highlight it and also connect the dots in the ways in which the patriarchy is making men lonely, and lonely men are becoming hateful, and hateful men are becoming dangerous, and dangerous men are hurting women, queer people, marginalized people, and also like wanting to oppress them because they want more control, because they're lonely, because the patriarchy makes them lonely. You know, like there's like a whole bunch of dots that are connecting here, and they all have to do with each other. So it's important to talk about these things, and it's important to highlight them, and it's important to encourage men not to be the worst. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope to see you next time, where we will be talking about why there is not enough space in your relationship for misogyny. So if you are in a relationship and you don't want there to be any misogyny in it, I'll see you next week where we dive into that. Thanks again for joining. As always, it's a pleasure. And please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Let us know how you're feeling about the show. And I'll see you next week. Mwah. Bye.